everyone, hope you're doing well. I'm actually standing here in our brand new garden that we planted. We called it Hope Garden, kind of really in hope that something grows. We also called it Hope Garden because we wanted to have a visual to focus on, especially during this time. We want to be able to focus on hope and just have that visual picture of that. Now I'm standing next to one of our peach trees that we're going to end up planting. You can already see this peach already coming out. It's already starting to bear fruit. And it's so cool to be able to have a garden and to have something that you come out and you begin to see it bear fruit. I mean, we're not professional gardeners, but it's not even just that we hope it for it to bear fruit. We actually expect it to bear fruit because that's what its purpose is. Its sole purpose is to bear fruit. You know, Israel's purpose was to bear fruit as well. Now, all through the Old Testament, God used powerful metaphors and imagery to communicate to his people. And one of those metaphors that he used was that he referred to his people as his vineyard. The key word there is his vineyard. And he planted them and he expected them to bear fruit and to be a light to the nations. Now, like you and I do often, is that they lost their way. They turned their back away from God. So God would bring punishment to get them to turn back to him, or ultimately sometimes he would bring judgment. Now that's the background. That's the backdrop for the story that we're going to talk about today in the life of Jesus. Again, Jesus spent the night in Bethany, so he wakes up today in Bethany, and he and his disciples head back into the city of Jerusalem. Now, on the way, they see a fig tree, but when Jesus went over there, he didn't see any fruit. And so what does he do? He curses it, and it withers and it dies. And you're like, Jesus just killed a tree. What's going on? Now, again, the fact that it had leaves on it is indicating to us that there should have been fruit. So when Jesus approaches that fig tree, it's not that he was just hoping to see fruit. He was expecting to see fruit. See, Jesus has given his disciples a visual illustration. And now as they enter into the city, he's going to give them a practical application. So as they go into the city, they go into the temple, the place of worship. And when they approach there, he sees something that just infuriates him. Now remember, it's Passover, so people are traveling all over the place, coming to Jerusalem to offer sacrifices to God. And oftentimes they didn't travel with an animal that they wanted to give to God, so they would purchase one at the temple. And so these people that were selling animals, they were making money off of these people that were buying animals that they wanted to sacrifice to God. And often these people were poor. And not only that, but the temple authorities, the rulers and the authorities, they were actually requiring people to pay a temple tax. And they were specifying it had to be a specific coin for them to give. And they oftentimes didn't have that particular coin, so they had to exchange their coin for the right coin to be able to pay the temple tax. And they were making money off of the people when they were doing that. So the temple, a place of worship, was becoming a money-making machine. Now these leaders, these chief priests, these temple authorities, Jesus was expecting to see fruit, and instead he just sees a bunch of leafy people. So what Jesus does is he flips over the table of the money changers. I mean, you can imagine the scene that's happening right now. If you've ever been to a restaurant and there's like an irate customer and they start yelling and screaming and everybody, all eyes are on them and everybody's just kind of just sitting there. You can imagine the scene as all eyes are on Jesus, and he looks over at the temple authorities and Jesus says, "Is it not written, my house should be called a house of prayer for all nations, and you have made it a den of robbers." Now this is a direct indictment on the religious leaders. Now you can imagine that this infuriated them, that this upset them, but the Gospels tell us that they were fearful of Jesus and the influence that he had with people, so they began to plot on how they could destroy him. Like the fig tree, Israel's leaders were supposed to bear fruit, but when Jesus approached them, he just sees a bunch of leafy people, barren people, no fruit. And like Israel, God has called you and I to bear fruit. And I have to admit, there are times in my life when I think I've probably focused on being a little too leafy, like I'm trying to do something for God instead of trying to be something with God. God actually expects us to bear fruit in our life. So here's a question for us this morning. Are you fruity? Do you have fruit in your life? The fruit of the Spirit, which is love and joy, peace, patience, goodness, and kindness. And if there's ever a time that it's challenging to be those kind of people, it's now. But the great news for us is this, is that in another time, Jesus is talking to his disciples, and he says that my Father is the gardener. And he doesn't say that you're the vine. He says, I'm the vine. I'm the source of life. And he says, you're a branch. And all a branch is to do is to remain, abide in the vine. And then the vine is going to produce fruit through that branch. God designed it in that we can't manufacture fruit on our own. It's Jesus working through us that is producing fruit for us. So as you and I come to Jesus and we just say, God, I trust you right now. I trust in your will. I trust in your ultimate plan. I trust that you're good. I trust that you know what you're doing. As we just trust in him and surrender to him on a daily basis, that God says that he will begin to produce fruit in our lives. Hey, I hope you enjoyed the videos. We look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Y'all take care and God bless.